down here in my basement, and you could see that this floor is pretty crappy. There's a lot of cracks in it. You could see some spalling and just stuff that is not good when you're trying to build a workshop and wheel tables and power tools and things like that around. All right, so we are going to do a couple things here to get this floor ready ultimately for some Rust-Oleum rock solid products. So this is kind of my staging area for the time being. You can see I have about 20 bags of the Mapai Self Leveler Plus. We also have some Sakrete Flow Coat, which is has some polymer additives in it as well. And that's what we're going to be using first here. And again, the ultimate end game here is to have a nice rock solid epoxy coating on this floor. So from all the videos that I've seen, a lot of people have issues with that product, and I think a lot of those issues come from not doing good prep work. So that's why we have all of these additional products here, because if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it as best as I can to get it right. One of the first things that you should probably do before you're doing this type of floor work is to figure out how uneven your floor is, right? So to kind of do this, there's a couple ways you could do this. The easiest way that I found to do it is to obviously use a laser and some type of measuring device. So I'm going to turn my Bosch level on here. Come a little closer to the camera so I can kind of show you what I rigged up here. So I essentially just took a piece of pine scrap here and took a ruler and essentially just taped it on here, so this way I could kind of tell where I'm high and where I'm low, and then I can kind of go off of that and mark the floor accordingly as to where it's low and see how much different type of product I need to put where. I'm going to turn the lights off here so I can see the line a little bit better. So I've already done this before, so I kind of know where my high spot is in the room. So I can kind of just come over here, and I am at 8 and 8.5 right there. So that's my high spot in the room. I believe my low spot is going to be somewhere over in this corner here. All right, so we're just going to turn this bad rider. So I was 8.5 over there. And when I come over here, let's see, where's the line? I am at 7 inches over here. So there is an 1.5 inch difference in slope between that corner and this corner. And it kind of feathers out a little bit over there. So, what you can do at this point is kind of just mark out your floor, the dimensions that are low or high, so you can kind of know where you need to move your product to. So initially I was just going to kind of get this self-leveler product and kind of, just slap it down. I've used it before, but not over square footage like this. This is about 600 square feet. I've used it in the bathroom before, and it was really good. But yeah, I was just going to put it down, but then I started looking more into the product and, what you need to do for prep work and this and that and the different depths it could take. So just looking at my floor in general, you're going to see a lot of different spalling and different little miscellaneous holes. Some of the holes are up to 1 inch deep. There's definitely some hairline cracks and stuff like that. You can kind of see one. There you go. There's an example of some of these little holes that are there. Right, they're kind of big. So I didn't want the self-leveler to kind of go in there, because I didn't want it to crack or cause a depression later on. So that's when I decided to do a scratch coat, and that's what we're going to do first here. So I'm going to start mixing some of this up, and we're going to start doing a scratch coat to kind of fill in some of these little miscellaneous holes and cracks and things like that. So before you put down any of these products, you definitely want to know what your temperature and your humidity is inside your work area. So I picked up this AccuRite device from Home Depot. It was like 11 bucks, and slapped it in the basement, and it kind of gives me a history of the temperature and the humidity, both high and low. So you definitely want to know what this is, because your products are going to have temperature limitations. Like, I think both of these concrete products need to be at least above 50 degrees. So luckily I'm at 61. It is in the middle of January on the East Coast, so my basement stays pretty warm. Now the next thing you're going to want to do is get your existing surface wet. This is going to help the new concrete bond to your existing concrete. So this is definitely a very important step that you do not want to skip. Now that I got my floor all wet, I'm going to go ahead and start mixing up the first batch of this Sakrete product. So I'm just going to reread the mixing and application instructions again. So they're calling for 3.5 quarts of water to be mixed with one of these 40-pound bags. And again, when you're doing this, you kind of want to probably wear a dust mask and some safety glasses and some gloves so you don't get this stuff, in your lungs or in your eyes and stuff like that. Little safety tip. I also got a drill from Harbor Freight. I didn't want to spend $100 on one, like a DeWalt at Home Depot, so this thing was like 40 bucks, half-inch, variable speed. So we'll kind of see how it works out. So I got a couple of buckets out there in front of me. One is empty, one's full of water, and that's the one that I measured to 3.5 quarts. So I'm going to pour about 75% of the contents into this bucket and then add the product. I thought this was a genius way to open a bag of concrete. Apparently it wasn't, so you probably shouldn't try to do this unless you want a ball of dust to hit you in the face. I perfected the method later on, for the record. Wait for it. Wait for it. Oh, there it is. Boom. So here I go with this Harbor Freight drill. I was actually rather satisfied with it. For like 40 bucks, it did a pretty good job, and the variable speed on it was easy to control. When you're mixing this stuff, you want to make sure you're doing it on a low speed. You definitely don't want to do it on high speed, because then that's going to introduce air bubbles to the mix, and that means that when you lay the mix down, then air bubbles are going to pop, and it's going to leave marks in the finish that you're not trying to have. So you just want to take your time and mix this up. What I did was I mixed it for 2 minutes, just like the manufacturer said, and then I actually let it sit for like 5 minutes, just because there was polymers in there, and I'm sure there was some type of activation they needed to do. Then I came back to it and just kind of whipped it up again for another minute before putting it down. So I thought that the mix came out pretty good, just following the instructions alone. I was just pouring out ribbons and just, organically troweling it out the way that I saw fit for my surface. I thought that the product spread really well. I didn't really have any issues with it. I might have had too much water on my floor from the wetting process. Hopefully I didn't, so I guess we'll find out. But all in all, it was pretty easy to kind of move around, and it didn't really set up too fast. I didn't think it did, at least. So I did about 75% of the entire surface. I didn't really feel like doing all of it for whatever reason, so I got to come back. And so all in all, I thought it was pretty straightforward. I'm not a professional by any means, so again, my whole goal here was just to fix existing imperfections in the slab that was spalling and small holes and hairline cracks and stuff like that prior to doing the self-leveling. So just following the instructions alone, you know, I didn't need to vary from them at all. I mixed 3.5 quarts of water in one 40-pound bag of the Sakrete, and you know, it came out pretty good. You know, we're going to see how this thing dries in the next 24 hours and see if I didn't have too much water on the floor. So hopefully that's not the case. But next up, we're going to be doing some self-leveling. That'll be next weekend. So check back for part 2 of the video series, and we'll be back. Bye.